Welcome viewers to this fourth lecture on Budhan, a play by denotified Charas, the Charas tribe of Charanagar, Ahmedabad. In the first lecture, we discussed the different aspects of a tribe. In the second lecture, we discussed the context of the DNTs. How is it that the term denotified and nomadic tribes came into being? What was the notification all about? We went back to the 19th century, the time period of the British colonization of India, and we looked at it in terms of the Criminal Tribes Act that led to the categorization of almost about 154 tribes as the criminal tribes. And these, in the post-independence period, were denotified. So, in the third lecture, we discussed in detail the play Budhan. In this lecture, the final lecture in the series on Budhan, we will be discussing the play at the level of performance. So, the first aspect is the issues that are raised in the course of the play. What are the important aspects? And in the third lecture, we ended it by discussing how it throws light on the real life case of Budhan Sabar. At the same time, it asks the audience to think about the lives of the DNTs. It also is a way of expressing humanity and stating how the DNTs too should be treated in a humane manner, as they say that, we too demand respect, we want respect. So, in this lecture, we are going to be looking at certain aspects of performance, at the level of drama, at the level of theatre. What is the experience of watching a play like this? Is this play different from other plays that are put up in, auditoriums on the proscenium? Or does it require a different kind of stage? What is the aesthetics, in a sense, of this particular play, Budhan? So, first and foremost, let's look at it in terms of authorship. We must note that the play has actually, even though it's been the writing of the play, the credit goes to one person and the credit of translation, for instance, Dakshin Bajrangi and the translation by Sonal Bakshi, we need to understand, and G. N. Devi points out, actually, the authorship belongs to the denotified Charas tribe of Charanagar, Ahmedabad. So it is a collective effort, which means that we are looking at a play that evolves in a sense through, let's say, collective writing. It could be, series of comments, series of theatre workshops, but it is a collective effort. And even though the final work might be done by 2 people or 3 people, but the collective effort remains as the thrust behind the play. The play represents the interests of the denotified tribes through the specific case of the individual Budhan Sabar, a member of the Sabar community, Purulia district, West Bengal. So, Budhan's case, of course, as mentioned in the previous lecture, led to the formation of the Denotified and Nomadic Tribes Rights Action Group with Mahashweta Devi and Lakshman Gaikwad. And these efforts finally took them to Charanagar, Ahmedabad. In 1998, on 31st August 1998, Budhan was founded by Ganesh Devi, literary critic, linguist, tribal activist, this group, Budhan, actually came out, really speaking, with a lot of literature and that draws attention to some of the issues that were raised by the play Budhan. So there is a theatre group now with the name Budhan that also, runs a small library to support the Chara children in their studies. Now, the members of the Chara tribe have produced other plays also to convey the concerns of the denotified tribes. These are plays such as Encounter, Kahani Meri Tumhari. It is not simply an imaginary perception of suffering. One of the most important aspects of this play is that it is based on the lived traumatic experience of being branded a criminal. So in a sense, what we're also looking at is how normally we associate life narratives and life writing or narratives about other people's lives only in terms of the prose form. But here we have a play that actually also recounts one aspect of the lived traumatic experience of being branded a criminal. So, if we look at the structure and the style of the play, before that, as mentioned earlier, that the play did go to different parts in India and it affected people, and the oral tradition of tribal theatre is something that remains, behind this particular play. So, since we are going to be talking about the kind of aesthetics that is there in this particular play, we need to also look at other plays and other forms. Do we see other plays and other forms around us? And I'll mention some of these styles in a sense of performance. So, as mentioned earlier, also in the third lecture, that the play is structured in terms of 15 short scenes, as only one or two being the long ones. And we look at the play now in terms of Bertolt Brecht's epic theatre. So, we also look at the influence of the Nukkad Natak tradition. The play really opens itself up, in a sense, to the whole tradition of the Nukkad Natak. If you look at this play, we can just about perform it anywhere. We do not require a full stage that has everything, that has elaborate sets, or that has, let's say, a proper, door showing us the Purulia station, or a proper chair and table showing us with everything, in a police station showing us the Bara Bazar police station, and so on and so forth. So, we look at this in terms of these traditions that have an aesthetics that is very different from the kind of aesthetics that we actually see in an auditorium, in a play that is performed in a closed auditorium. What then is the experience of the actors? What is the experience of the audience? So, we are looking at two more things here. That is, the entire aesthetics from the point of view of the actor and the aesthetics from the point of view of the viewers who are watching this play. Everything that is going to happen in the course of the play is actually mentioned right at the beginning, which means that there is no suspense that is going to be played out about what really happened. Everything is mentioned clearly. The beginning and the end are clearly mentioned. The play remains change-oriented. This kind of a style that prevents the audience from either slipping into emotions or thinking about, what really speaking is going to happen next. When everything is mentioned right at the beginning, the focus then of the audience is going to be on the issues that are raised in the play. As Brecht himself had said, that new alienations are designed to free socially conditioned phenomena from that stamp of familiarity which protects them against our grasp today. So, the term that is being used here is alienations. In the third lecture, we had discussed, for instance, right at the beginning of the play, the use of the narrator. The narrator is somebody who speaks directly to the audience. The second thing is the actors commenting on their own roles. So, what happens to a viewer who is watching a play of this kind? To repeat, the viewer's attention will be directed not towards the emotions being played out, but towards the questions that they are being asked. They will pay serious attention to it. So, what are these alienations? The term alienation technique, or V effect that is used is a term that is used by Bertolt Brecht. And what Brecht does is presents these as techniques to be used on stage that kind of allow the audience to look at things not in a way that is familiar. In fact, we have to free the performance from socially conditioned stamp of familiarity. They should be able to look at it as objectively as possible. So when the familiar is made to appear strange, that is what creates the space in the minds of both the actors and the viewers to look at it differently. The performances here we can see they are objective, they are in terms of different scenes. So the kind of seamless continuity that we see at the level of performance, let's say in the naturalistic style of drama, where there is an imaginary fourth wall and the audience is expected to watch the play as if they are watching it for real. That kind of a situation is not there in this case. And so, the production then becomes more experimental. It becomes nebulous and allows for greater discussion. This also draws attention towards stage space and the fact that the space in which a performance takes place has its own kind of politics. Another play that comes to mind in this case is a play by the 20th century playwright Dario Fo, the Italian playwright, who wrote a play called The Accidental Death of an Anarchist. Now, in 1969, a person called Pinelli was arrested after an explosion, in the Piazza Fontana in Milan. And as is pointed out in the introduction to the play, Pinelli was killed when he apparently fell from the fourth floor window of the police interrogation room. Christopher Cairns points out, how later performances based on information collected by journalists and lawyers continued while the trials of the case were on, and finally shifted the blame from the anarchists to the fascists. So the play functions then as an exercise in counter-information. So if we take our cue from Dario Fo's Accidental Death of an Anarchist, then Budhan, which is written and performed in the 90s, also is a play that presents the plot as counter-information. The play denies the whole idea of Budhan's death being a suicide and presents counter-information. It reconstructs events that might have taken place and plays them out to present a counter-narrative to what had generally been understood at that point of time. If we look at the role of the narrator is very important because the narrator in this play is the first person who speaks directly to the audience and provides them with information. On the one hand, the narrator gives us the number of people, about 6 crore people being, belonging to denotified communities. At the same time, the narrator also outlines what it means to be a tribal and then what it means to be a DNT. And to highlight this point, please take a look at what the narrator says and how, for reasons unknown to anybody, the narrator asks, "We are singled out for bearing a burden." But the role of the narrator, apart from what the narrator speaks to the audience, is also to create that objective distance. The narrator, in saying that we present to you the story of one such community, the suburbs, is saying an important thing. The narrator is telling the audience that this is a play. The play, ultimately, the fact that, this is not something that is happening in real time, but it is a play that is reconstructing what had happened to to Budhan Sabar, and also the fact that the play takes into account the final verdict that gives justice to Budhan Sabar. Right? So, and the narrator right at the beginning makes a plea. The plea is for change. So, which means that this idea of Brechtian theatre, this idea of theatre that speaks directly to the audience and maintains that objective distance, makes the familiar seem strange, makes the audience, the viewers, think about the issues being raised, and also makes the actors pose those questions to the audience. This kind of drama, this kind of theatre is change-oriented. It is theatre that speaks for change. It is theatre that functions not only as counter-information, but theatre as resistance is very, very important. And Budhan then is a classic example of theatre as resistance. So, if we examine the aesthetics of the play and think of it from the performance point of view, for instance, immediately after this, the actors stand in a single file. Each actor calls for revolution and they stand in a single file. There is a use of mime, in a sense, in this play. Mime can be used, for example, the reference to the torture of the Lodha community. This again draws our attention to another playwright of the 70s who had, that's Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the Kenyan playwright, who had actually written about the Mau Mau rebellion in his play, The Trial of Dedan Kimathi. And he presents the history of the oppressed people in Africa through mime. So, there is the white and the black slave trader, there is the chain of slaves, the slaves as labor, the idea of rebellion. These ideas of, they present the history of the colored people in Africa, the blacks in Africa, through mime. And this something very similar is hinted at in, the killing of the people of the torture of the Lodha community in the 1970s. Now, if we look at, we mentioned how real-time sets are not required, like you do not need a proper set to show this is a police station or this is a Purulia jail. But the actors themselves use their body to form these different spaces. Take a look at this. For example, in the second scene, the actors assume the form of a pawn shop. In scene 3, the actors assume the form of a police station. In scene 6, the actors take the form of a police station yet again. In scene 9, the actors take the form of Purulia jail. And in scene 15, the actors assume the form of a courtroom. So, what is happening here? We don't have a real pawn shop. We don't have people actually, showing the betel leaf or a shopkeeper there. But we actually have the actors who will use their own body to form the pawn shop or the police station. How they do it is something they will have to think about. And they can make use of physical theatre where the body is used to convey meaning. The body is used to convey certain ideas. So, for example, I can share a few examples. We can simply have actors holding placards and indicating whether it's a pawn shop or it's a police station, right? Or the actors could be holding, one particular item that would indicate that this is, a police station or this is Purulia jail, the form of the courtroom. So, which means that it is in this kind of aesthetics, the actors have to make complete use of themselves, not only emote, through their facial expressions, which in any case in this kind of a drama is something that is kept at the objective level, because the actors also have to alienate themselves or distance themselves in a sense from the role they are performing, and they do so by Constantly, there are scenes in which the plot is developed, and there are scenes in which the actors, appear. Shamli will not be Shamli. Shamli will be the actor playing the role of Shamli, and she will comment on Shamli's role in the play. So, which means that there is tremendous responsibility on the actors here to also use their bodies, the physicality, to convey meaning by getting into different formations. So, the actors, even the one playing the role of the constable, they are present on stage and they raise an important question. So, irrespective of the role that they are performing, the role of Budhan or Shamli or Inspector Roy or the constable, they all ask questions together, which means that they are in the process of what Bertolt Brecht calls showing or demonstrating. They are demonstrating a certain kind of role. So they raise an important question, a horrifying act that will force you to ask, are we really free after half a century of independence? Even after more than 50 years, the British stigma of criminality of birth continues to stick to the TNTs. So this is a question that is posed by all the actors together, irrespective of the role that they are performing. So, what then is the role that they are performing? It is an idea, there is a distance here between the actor and the role, and this alienation allows a dynamic flow, amongst actors themselves on stage and also between the actors and the audience. If we look at the play, Budhan, Shyamali, Inspector Ashok Roy, Budhan is arrested simply because he belongs to the Sabha community. He is not informed of the crime that he has committed, and he is a simple basket maker who has been asked to accept the onus of 17 thefts. If he would have done that, it would have saved him his life. But in this case, Budhan remained honest to himself and continued to emphasize how he was a very simple, honest basket maker who had nothing to do with all this. Now, this is a very, very dark moment, and it also can evoke in the minds of the audience, the tendency to wallow in emotion. But the audience would probably not be in that kind of a situation, because the way in which the actors comment on their roles, it continues to emphasize critically the use of alienation techniques, the use of justice on stage, the whole idea of how the audience needs to, really speaking, think about what they are being shown. For example, when the actor playing the role of the inspector says that, we turn facts into fiction and fiction into facts, this ability to distinguish between fact and fiction, or this ability to understand how facts are being distorted and narratives and fiction is being created around Budhan Sabar, can only happen if the audience is going to be able to think clearly about these events. Small aspects from, how the date of his arrest is changed, and, how, his serial number is shown to be different. So, the commentary mode now. This is another way in which the actors, can speak to the audience directly. From time to time in this play, the actors comment on the events as they take place on stage. So, in scene 1, the constable throws light on the pathetic situation of the DNTs. In scene 3, the actors playing Budhan and Shyamali report what happens to Budhan. So, which means that what are they doing is the question here. What kind of an aesthetics is this? So, what is really speaking happening is that they leave the role behind, they come out of it as actors and ask questions. It is this that will prevent any kind of an emotional response that the audience might have. It will prevent this and in fact enable critical thinking on the part of the audience. So take a look at this particular scene. Shyamali speaks about Shyamali. Shyamali says how Shyamali is a simple, innocent woman. Budhan speaks about his role. Budhan was not even told of his crime before he was arrested. The first constable talks about the first constable, who in the play, of course, is an equal participant, says, Budhan's crime lay in the fact that he belonged to the Sabar community. Inspector Ashok Roy, who's obviously executed all of this, again speaks about the law, speaks about the killing of the Sabars and makes a very sharp comment as he says that killing Sabars was just an enjoyable game for Officer Roy. So, Shyamali, Budhan, Constable, Ashok Roy, these are all actors who are in these roles. So, the performance takes this into account, how these actors are actually, leaving out their roles and they are commenting on them. Another very important aspect that goes into the aesthetics of this kind of performance is the use of the chorus. Scene 4 onwards, the idea of the commentary is extended further and there is a chorus. The chorus at one point becomes almost a participant to the events on stage. As Sridhar states that the legal system did not take into account that Budhan was on remand and Inspector Ashok Roy and the Assistant Superintendent's brutal attitude towards the Sabar tribals is a reflection of course, the prevailing prejudices. But at this point, the chorus starts personifying, in a sense, Budhan's fears and how everybody gathers around Budhan in a circle and their pitch rises and they move around Budhan in a circle. The chorus then is putting pressure on Budhan to accept a crime that he has not committed. So their pitch rises and they move around Budhan in a circle more rapidly now, almost reaching a kind of frenzy. This rhythmic, movement in a sense tells us how the chorus, normally one would associate the chorus as, standing, remaining integrated with the play, but also commenting objectively. But here the chorus is also a participant. And this, I think, is an important intervention at the level of aesthetics. So just as the message, from Ashish carries the message of Mahashweta Devi that Budhan's body is not to be cremated, at this moment, the real and the dramatic are combined. So the play is actually a reconstruction of events that had led to Budhan Sabar's death/killing. It was not a suicide, but it was a custodial killing. But at this moment, when an actor, when Ashish carries the message, then at this moment, the real and the dramatic are combined. As Shyamali gets up to the rhythmic chant once again of, there is a rhythmic chant of Budhan in the background, we see how the villagers too become demonstrators and they too cry for justice. So it is possible that all the actors who were performing these different roles in the 13th scene, when the villagers get together, they can also all be the villagers, be the demonstrators and make a plea for justice. The play, of course, carries the verdict, and this again is a moment in which the real and the theatrical world come together. One, the first time, as the message from Mahashweta Devi is carried, in the play, and secondly, when the judges read out the final verdict, when the judge reads out the final verdict. So, once the verdict is read out, the important questions then that are raised are questions that are posed to the audience. The entire thrust of the play has been to involve the audience not emotionally but intellectually, so that they are able to observe and understand analytically and then use their critical acumen to ask questions, just as the actors pose the questions about DNTs being, citizens. And they say that we need respect. The final statement is calm. It is a confident note of finality. So, the verdict, of course, we know is settled in Budhan's favor, and money is to be paid, about 1 lakh is to be paid to Shyamali. So, but the questions now are posed by Budhan himself. Once again, it could be the actor playing Budhan could be posing as Budhan's spirit, or it could simply be the actor playing Budhan once again emerging as an actor. After the final judgment, all actors stand still while Budhan's spirit takes the front stage and Budhan addresses the audience. So, to conclude, we look at some important points in this lecture in terms of the aesthetics of theatre. Theatre as counter-information, theatre as providing an alternative story, another narrative to what is being projected by the dominant social factions. Theatre as resistance. The third point is about the kind of language that is being used. Nothing complex. It is simple, it is direct, because the idea is to make the people think about this particular issue. The fact that this style was effective is clear because it bore fruit and there is an organization and a theatre group called Budhan. The focus on this kind of theatrical style to understand the concerns of the oppressed is essential. The very last statement, they form a human chain and all actors hold their hands high, is indicative of the need for humanity, the need to treat each other with respect. And this has to be done not by simply universalizing it, but by looking at it from the point of view of people who are on the margins, like the DNTs. Thank you.